Right, so giving screen recordings a go, figured I'd dabble in it. So this was just of a photo of some woman that I found on the internet, on DeviantArt to be particular, and had finished basically all the work that I had on the table, and figured I'd give a screen recording a go prior to last weekend's convention in Sydney. This is kind of all on the fly, so if I don't really make any sense or anything sounds incoherent, just bear with it. Anyway, so this is kind of my process for drawing and painting. So I usually start out with a drawing, as you can see. I don't really have like a good screen recording program other than Quicktime, so what I had to do was take the navigator window from Photoshop, have it on my Mac, which is my main screen. I usually work on a Cintiq, so I was just recording the navigator window from Photoshop, which is why a lot of the kind of paint strokes and all that look fairly just smacked on. So anyway, like my process with colouring, or what I've been experimenting with lately as far as portraits go, is to do the drawing, do a kind of red underpainting, and then do the colour of the bones underneath the skin, and then paint in the subsurface scattering colours, which is the bright pinks and yellows around the jaw, just to do the way light interacts with skin. So if you've spent enough time studying that like I have, then you'll kind of pick up a few tricks as to how you can go about dealing with skin. And skin is one of those substances, or materials rather, that has an interesting way of interacting with light. So you're not just getting the surface color of the skin itself, you're getting all the blood vessels, the fatty tissue that sits under skin, and the light interacts with all those features. So you're not just painting the surface of the skin. You've got to consider all those things when you kind of approach painting or doing a portrait or just painting skin in general. But that just comes with studying or doing lots of studies and having a bit of an understanding of how color and light works and how it interacts with different materials. But you know, I'm no expert on it by any means. Like, there's plenty of other artists out there who are much better at going into, you know, depth about these things. But I figure for the sake of this video, this is kind of an example of, you know, my thinking and process as to how I'd go about handling a subject like a painting or illustrating, you know, a human in any form, so to speak. So yeah, what I've done so far is just paint the color of the bone and then the subsurface scattering, and then I'm just overlaying the lighter colors, how the light interacts with the skin, and then it's just a slow process of building up and going back and forth with applying lighter colors and then darker colors, and then more lighter colors and then more darker colors, and yeah, just going from there. Sorry if any of this sounds incoherent. I'm just doing it on the fly. I haven't scripted anything. And yeah, so like one tip you can, or one tip I can give anyone when dealing with color is that the way your people perceive color is by contrast of what other colors are around it. So for example, you could take any kind of gray color or just a gray and contrast it with a red, and by contrast, or by virtue of that grey being up against that red, it might take on a more green appearance. So this is where having a knowledge of your colour wheel comes in handy. And what I found is a lot of the power, or rather where you can kind of better your knowledge on colour, is by learning how to use greys more than just going straight to the more saturated colours. Like, I found there's a lot of power in manipulating the more washed out variations of colour, rather than just relying heavily on saturated colours. So it tends to be more effective, or at least that's what I found works for me pretty well. But again, you know, this is something that just comes with a lot of practice, and there's no substitute for just grinding away and figuring things out. Like, obviously, if you can find a mentor or someone who has that knowledge and they can guide you through it, that's even better. But if you don't really have access to something like that, then, you know, you just got to stick with it and figure it out on your own. But one of the good things is there's so many awesome resources online these days, is that, you know, if you're dedicated and willing to figure it out on your own, you can really do that for the most part, which is what I've done as well. And, you know, there's a sense of pride in being able to figure things out on your own. But if you want speed, then, you know, go pester someone who has the knowledge and get them to teach you. So yeah, anyway, where I'm kind of up to in the illustration so far is, you know, just applying details where I think they're needed. And, you know, doing a portrait or any kind of work is just, it's constant course correction. Like, you'll see an area that needs more work, and then you'll kind of deal with that area for a while, and then, you know, you're constantly looking between the finished piece and you know, the original photo, and you think, all right, you know, this area needs more work, and, you know, you keep going at it like that. Yeah, so just working on the hair here. Hair's a really tricky one, because it obviously doesn't handle the same way skin does, and it does, like, it has subsurface scattering properties. Like, light will penetrate the surface of the hair follicles, so you kind of have to consider that, the way light interacts with the individual hairs. And when I say scattering, what that essentially means is, when you think of light coming from a light source, it kind of scatters through, you know, throughout the atmosphere. And, you know, scattering is another way of saying that the light interacts with certain objects or materials. And subsurface scattering is quite literally just what the name means, is that it penetrates the surface of whatever object it's hitting, and then interacts with the molecules, or, I don't know, whatever lies below the surface of the object. So if you take, like, an orange or something, and, you know, you hold that up to the light, you'll get a lot of the light coming through the orange. So that's an example of subsurface scattering. Or even, you know, when you have a person who's backlit and the light comes through the back of their ear, you know, you get, like, bright red colors. So that's like light going beneath the surface of the skin, interacting with, like, the you know, the blood vessels in the ear, and just the cartilage in the ear as well. And again, just, you know, things to consider when you're thinking about painting a person. Anyway, so, like, the video is kind of getting close to finishing, so I'd appreciate any comments or thoughts as to what you thought of the illustration and my ramblings on the video. I might do some more recordings in the future, because it was fun to do this one. So cheers.